Well, here I am for another weekly recap review of films that I watched last week. Because I've got nothing better to do aside from work. But who really wants to do that? So here's 3 films and a 5-part mini-series for you to listen to. Enjoy. First, we have the 5-part mini-series, Asterix and Obelix, Le Big Fight. This is a French comic franchise, and quite frankly, it should have been the big one that got to be transferred over to the big scene in Western entertainment. Though it probably would have been screwed to hell and back, much like the Smurfs were. So I'm kind of glad that didn't happen. Asterix and Obelix as a franchise is something I've known about for a long time. I watched the Viking one where a bunch of Vikings come over and try to invade Gaul, trying to invade the Gauls, and I really enjoyed it. And I watched a film that was released back in 2016, where the Romans were just building this massive hotel or something, and I enjoyed that. And I enjoyed this as well. Yeah. These two Gauls are very entertaining to watch, with many jokes landing so incredibly well. I like the story that's been presented, with their home being invaded for the 100th time by the Romans to no success, only in doing so to be challenged to only being challenged to go down in a massive battle for ownership of the clans, which is cool. You should really watch it. It's on Netflix right now. I did watch it dubbed for the English version because I didn't really feel like doing the French version, but I'm sure I'll do it. I'm sure I'll watch it again in French version, but still. Yeah, but there's some predictable conflicts in this, some weak moments here and there, and a third act breakup that gets resolved way too quickly, but it's not anything terrible. Yeah. Though the only part that pissed me off is the Roman girl who decided to change sides, because of course the only prominent female character that is not a Gaul changes sides. No, we can't have an interesting female protagonist who's neutral about the whole ordeal. That felt a bit preachy and out of place for me, and I kind of wish she didn't get a redemption arc because it felt so predictable. And even though that she was against genocide for the Gauls, I still didn't really care about that. I would have preferred that she remained neutral and preferred not to join the Gauls side. I mean, when she did, she just said, "I'm choosing my side." That just felt way too on the nose for me. So yeah. Quite frankly, throughout it didn't really feel like it was something that she would have done. Yeah, at the same time, it kind of did feel like the way it was being presented. Yeah. Again, even though she didn't want to kill the Gauls, I would have much rather preferred that she didn't change allegiances or whatever. I'm honestly just spitballing here, and quite frankly, I think I'm just complaining over nothing. Yeah. But I'd rather she didn't get a redemption arc and just stayed neutral. I probably would feel exactly the same if it was a guy who changed allegiances or whatever, but quite frankly, I didn't really like the decision to give her a redemption arc, and quite frankly, I didn't like her that much. She wasn't an interesting character to me. And I'm pretty sure she was an original character, so I guess new original characters don't interest me that much when it comes to old franchises. Like, they might get me a bit in a hot fire, but it's my opinions, and quite frankly, I think that's the only part where I'm just actively complaining, which I shouldn't be complaining about. It doesn't bother me that much, but I still would have preferred it how I would have preferred it. But aside from that blunder, which quite frankly shouldn't be complained about, I had a lot of fun with this 5-part miniseries, and I'm glad I watched it, and I might want to watch more of Asterix and Obelix now. They're very entertaining. Should probably read the comics though as well. If there was any Disney film that should have gotten the high praises of high levels of praises and fan service that Frozen got, it's got to be Tangled. It's infinitely better than Frozen in every single way, aside from the animation, which does look a bit washed out and not as visually impressive as Frozen. I will admit that, but everything else, infinitely better. There is so much I love about this film. The beautiful story of a girl trapped all her life, finally going out to live her dream that she's been holding her entire life. Whilst also learning about the wonder and beauty of the world that's whilst hostile and can be dangerous, isn't constantly out to get you. The romance between Rapunzel and Eugene is one of my favorites in any Disney film. The two leads have so much chemistry and bounce off of each other so well. The charm and connection between the leads just leads to so many funny and really sweet moments. It really shocks me that we haven't gotten another great Disney love story since this. Frozen is just fine, not as great. Well, much like the film, it's not as great as this, and it will never be as great as this. I do not understand and never will understand why Frozen was the cultural phenomenon that it became. Anyways, the characters are all so charming, likable, and interesting. The story is beautifully well told. The jokes are so funny, especially with the characters' comedic banter playing off of each other so well. Maximus is so unhinged; it's hilarious, and the ruffians in the Snuggly Duckling are just so absurd. You can't help but laugh at them. Whilst also getting wrapped up by them wanting to pursue just regular passions and job that goes completely against how they're designed. Yeah. The ugly guy wanting to find love is literally me. I want to find love, and I'm not a top 1%. I can relate to this guy. I'm half joking, but still, I relate to that guy a lot. Mainly because I want to find a love connection. Anyways, Gothel is such an entertaining villain who's incredibly menacing and really scary when you think about it. She has so many similarities to Frollo, and whilst not as well developed and fleshed out, and quite frankly, never going to be on the same levels as Frollo, but she has so much ingenuity for her character, and quite frankly, she's terrifying to think about, and pretty shallow. Let's be honest. I mean, she wants to stay young and beautiful for hundreds of years, so she kidnaps a baby to do that. Some Disney villains are just unforgivable, I guess. Now on to the best part. The songs are endlessly entertaining and beautiful. When Will My Life Begin is a great opening. It's honestly just a real kicker to listen to. I think any of these songs you could easily listen to in the car and not equate them to Disney musicals that much. Yeah, they're just that good. I Got a Dream is so entertaining and enjoyable. I'm so glad that we got the Flynn Rider meme where the ruffians all just point their swords towards him at him. That's one of the best memes to ever be created. You can use that in anything. Let's be honest. Yeah. Mother Knows Best is such a good villain song. Yeah. Whilst I don't think it's never going to be nearly as high, but damn that reprise. That reprise hits so hard that it's unreal. If the reprise was a full villain song, it would be a top 10 Disney villain song, no doubt. And of course, one of the best moments in all of Disney, At Last I See the Light. This entire scene is absolutely incredible. It doesn't fail to give me chills and heartwarming feels. It's a beautiful array of stunning animation, incredible music to back the whole thing up, and perfect realization for Rapunzel to realize that her new dream is sitting right behind her, holding two lanterns, which leads to both of them lift. reach to both of them, lift them up into the sky, which leads to Eugene singing his segment, and which all builds up to the two which leads up to the two duetting, and it's just so beautiful. God, what? God, Disney, what are you doing to my lonely heart? God damn, you're killing me. You make me feel even more depressed. This might seem corny to say, but I don't care. This scene and this couple made me believe in true love. Yes, so what? I'm a romantic at heart. Sue me. Yeah, I hope and pray that this love finds me one day, and I get to experience the magic that these two have with each other. Yeah, that ending, man. When Eugene cuts her hair to free Rapunzel. Ladies, find yourself a man to do that. And gents, find yourself a woman who will revive you from the dead by singing and crying on your cheek. I think I've said my point. If I have anything to say about this film, it'll be that I wish the Stavington brothers had more presence than they did, as well as the king and queen getting some lines here and there. And quite frankly, I think a lot of the film could have been better here and there, but that's just me nitpicking. Apart from that, this is a top 10 Disney film for me. Endlessly rewatchable, absolutely entertaining, and tremendously beautiful. Find yourself a woman who will look at you the way Rapunzel does to Eugene, and vice versa with Eugene looking at Rapunzel. Incredible. Loved it since the first moment I watched it. So, what's the second film? Dogman. The entire world looks like it's been made out of cardboard, and that just adds to the charm of the film. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it's very entertaining with a nice story and likable characters with great dynamics all around, topped off with some very funny comedy as well. I liked the story. The main villain, PT, had a nice arc throughout the film as he bonds with little PT and learns to care about others whilst also getting over his daddy issues. Ricky Gervais is in this and he plays an evil fish, and that's cool. You really feel for the main character, Dogman, wanting to do the best he can whilst also not feeling ultimately appreciated by those who are closer around him. And whilst that was probably not the case, it definitely felt like for me, and you definitely feel for him in a lot of moments where he just feels down on his luck, considering the fact that he's a person with a man's body and a dog's head, so that's got to be difficult. But hey, he had a sweet dynamic with the police captain, the news anchor lady, and little PT. There's not really much else to say, that's pretty much it. It was a very good time, and I enjoyed myself. We stand little PT right here. We stand little PT. The final film, The Running Man, 1987. Ever since the trailer for the new Running Man film, directed by Edgar Wright, was released, I've been wanting to watch it for ages. It's my most anticipated film for these last 2 months. Aside from Predator, Badlands, I want to watch both those films so badly. But yeah, and it only made sense to watch this version of The Running Man to prepare for that version of The Running Man. Being a cheesy 80s film, it's a lot of fun, with tons of impressive actions as well as a good story at the heart. Obviously, it's not accurate at all, or it's not entirely accurate to the book it's being based on. But that didn't bother me that much, especially since I haven't read the book, so I wouldn't know personally. Arnie is still hamming it up as whatever he plays in every role. He's great in all of his roles, this time being Ben Richards. I like the audience cheering on constantly changing allegiance to whoever. Yeah, there's a grandma in this saying, "Motherfucker." And that took me out and made me belt out laughing. I was not expecting that, but that was so funny. Yeah. I think there was some not great moments, and I think about halfway through I was kind of waiting for the film to wrap up so I could just do something else. But hey, the ending was charming. It had a nice romance, good likable leads, and it had a good story arc with a nice ending. Yeah. I had fun throughout. That's all I need to say. Overall, can't wait to watch the new version coming out soon to cinemas. All right, what would I give these films? Asterix and Obelix, Le Big Fight. I'll give that an 8 out of 10. Tangled, a 10 out of 10. Dogman, a 7 out of 10. And The Running Man, an 8 out of 10. So that's pretty much it. Overall, not as prevalent as some other films, though quite frankly, most of the films from these past few weeks have just been short. So it's nice watching more films than that. So that's pretty much the end of this video. I want to say thank you very much for watching. Leave some comments down below of what films I should watch in the future, and I'll see you later. Have a good one.